Like what I said in another video, when you say Italy, it's just synonymous to beautiful, right? I mean, it's just the way it is, from their architecture, their art, their cars, and of course, motorcycles. They have a distinct flair for design that's just Italian. The last time I delved into this brand deep was in their manufacturing facility in Mandello in 2018. From then and now, considering we also had 2 limbo years lost with COVID, they were still able to come up with their most state-of-the-art, most advanced in the history of Motoguzzi bike, right? COVID did not stop them. Behold, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Motoguzzi V100 Mandello.
Mommy, Daddy, look at me. I went to school and I got a degree. All my friends call it the big D. I went to school and I got the big D. 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 I went to school and I got the big D. Is your muffin buttered? Would you like us to assign someone to butter your muffin? Excuse me?
Our backdrop for this feature is Malaysia, truly Asia. We were gonna go to Genting Highlands, which is their famous ala Marilake, but around 10 times better, with lesser kamotes on the road, but they still have their kamotes, of course. Now, I've ridden in Genting several times, and I was looking forward to rolling on them streets again on a bike that's been getting a lot of hype. Of course, I'm talking about the Motoguzzi V100 Mandello. Now, I saw this first in EICMA last November in Italy. Yeah, it cranked a lot of necks there. It's obviously a looker, right? Expect nothing less than a pleasant to the eyes bike from Motoguzzi.
Oh wow, that's my favorite number.
You're best!
I know. Actually, my favorite number is 6.
Is your mother worried? Would you like us to assign someone to worry your mother? Excuse me? What?
So we're off to a very slow start. I mean, hitting rush hour in Malaysia. It's wet, it's humid, it's hot. But it's fun, baby. Sarap magmotor.
On the chaise long, on the chaise long, on the chaise long, all day long, on the chaise long, on the chaise long, on the chaise.
First thing to point out with this bike is that it's got a brand new engine developed ground up. Brand new engine here. It's more efficient in the sense that it's not occupying as much space. Yes, the displacement is 1042 cc's, and while it looks like it's got your usual fins, like from the other Moto Guzzi engines, this one is liquid cooled. Now, mind you, this is a first for Moto Guzzi ever, right? So in that aspect alone, this bike becomes a pivot point for Moto Guzzi. From here on, this approach will branch them out into another parallel universe of Moto Guzzi liquid-cooled engines. We are experiencing this right now. So another thing that's different with this engine, the exhaust is now coming out at the side as opposed to the front. And why is that? Well, doing it that way frees up space and legroom. So the engine is now shorter and it can accommodate a longer swing arm. Now, yes, there's a longer swing arm, but it's not affecting the whole wheelbase. The wheelbase is pretty much still the same. It's just that in the middle, the engine is smaller and they were able to accommodate a longer swing arm. So it's offset. So what's this gonna do with the bike when you're accelerating? It's gonna be a linear takeoff, right? You're not gonna be doing too much pogoing because of how this bike is now designed. What's also cool about this engine, fuel injection is buttery smooth. They got that part right. And this, of course, is in connection with the transmission. The shifting is pretty seamless, as well as you can shift. It'll just, match up to what your skill set's gonna be. So if you can shift smoothly, this bike will keep up.
Alright, I'm at a gasoline station right now, somewhere in Malaysia, because I got lost. So what happened was, I was trying to get my acceleration test. I told everybody, go ahead, I'll catch up. Next thing you know, they're all gone. The highways here are huge, they're big, and I got lost. Good thing though, I met this guy. I was asking directions. He's right there coming out. Can you show me where Motoplex is? Because that's where I'm headed. Turns out he's a Grab driver. Hello, sir. Thank you so much. Oh, he's gonna take me to Motoplex. So lesson learned. I've been doing this for so long. I should have known better. Don't just veer off on your own, right?
Another highlight in the engine is that the primary and crankshaft rotates in opposite directions. Now, when you have engines like what we have here with the Motoguzzi, or like in BMWs, when you have the piston sticking out at the sides, when you rev, it's gonna push the bike to one side. Like with my R90, when I rev, the bike's gonna go like this. And this is inherent with all engines designed like that. Of course, this affects us in cornering, right? There's like a torque steer, that's what you call it. So when you're turning and you're revving, it's either, depending on where the bike is pushing left or right, depending on the design of the engine, it's either gonna grip that corner more or it's gonna try to stand up. So what did Moto Guzzi do with this? Crankshaft and primary, they are turning in opposite directions, and that eliminated this torque steering issue. So when you rev it, it's just dead on like that. Very balanced. Good job, Moto Guzzi, on that one. Torque steer is eliminated. Now let's talk about just how tech this bike is. This is now the first ever Moto Guzzi that has a 6-axis IMU. Now, what does that mean? It's now got cornering ABS, cornering traction control, it's got quick shifting. What we rode on is the S version, so it's got a semi-active suspension as well, which is hooked up with the ride modes. Now, just to talk about the semi-active suspension really quick, this part is what I really appreciate about this bike, because you can adjust the suspension on the fly. So what we're doing with semi-active suspension is when you're in a certain mode, you can adjust the suspension to that mode. For example, Turismo mode, you want it nice and plush and soft, right? Adjust it to that, tune it to that. So when you get into Turismo mode, it's gonna automatically adjust the suspension to that mode. Cool, huh? If you're in sport mode, that means you can dial up your suspension, firm it up a bit so you can really take on those corners and your bike's just more firm. If you're sensing, okay, we're gonna go hit the twisties now, boop, change the mode, and you're not ready for more action-packed cornering, right? So this part, the semi-active suspension, that's really cool. Now, one of the things that made this thing also high-tech is they have this thing called adaptive aerodynamics. It's by the tank area, you got these little wings that are just gonna go.
So the flaps are integrated within the riding modes of the bike. So they are influenced from the selection of riding modes or your riding speed.
Okay,
on the
cool.
rain riding mode, the standard setting is with the flaps that are always open. Then if you change riding mode, of course, they close.
I mean, I'm not the only one who thought this the whole ride. Of course, there's a part of us is gonna think, is that just a gimmick? Does that thing really, really work? Now, to answer that question, on the onset, yes, it may look like, hey, that's just a gimmick. But you know what? Their claim is it's lowering the wind pressure on your torso by 22%. You might think, is that a lot? I mean, is that enough? Here's what you have to think of. If you're racking up kilometers, if you're going the distance, if you're gonna be riding for days on end, it's these little things that add up. Case in point, like for example, a quiet helmet, which I really, really like. If I'm gonna ride a long distance, I need to wear something that's quiet so it doesn't add up to my rider fatigue, because you know, wind noise adds to that. Another example here is when you're wearing earplugs, of course it's gonna deaden the sound and you're riding. But in the long run, because of the constant pressure that's being formed around your ear canal by the foam that's pushing outwards like that, you're gonna feel pain in your ears in the long run. So it adds up. So I can understand what Moto Guzzi is trying to do here, and I think you'll better appreciate it if you ride the bike for long distances. Pressure, constant pressure with your body and the wind, that's also going to affect your performance in the long run. That's why it's really helpful if you have a nice windscreen and something like this that's going to deflect wind in the lower part of your waist. Then that will also help in the long run. You might not notice it at first. So that's pretty much the whole idea with those aerodynamic flaps, adaptive aerodynamic flaps. 4,000 feet. I mean, how I wish we had like these Highland roads to try out bikes back in the Philippines. We have Marilake, we have our fair share of twisties, but these are pretty good roads. Never get old. Okay, here we have it, the Motoguzzi V100 Mandello, the SS version.
the version. And just so you know what it will look like with doble placa, this is what we have here in Malaysia, a doble placa. I'm gonna start with the intro. I wanna show you the intro, this beautiful TFT display. Boom, little flash in the pan there, Moto Guzzi logo, and then you're right into it. Controls, left, right. You have access already straight with this button towards the modes. And as you can see there, it says rain. We can switch to sport. You can switch to road, and of course touring. Now when you're in rain, check out this flap. Ta-da! Press this button and I go to sport. That thing's gonna be, ta-da, be refined. Talking about the seat, it's very pillion friendly. You got lots of foam coming up over here, and you got a nice seat as well, very primo in terms of the foam, nice and soft. Although it tapers over here, would I say it's comfortable? I would say it's comfortable. In the long term, I'd still feel it's more on the sportier side as opposed to full-on adventure where you want to go do 3,000 kilometers and not expect any sore saddle. You have variants of the seat. You got a lot of aftermarket seats going on there that you can just buy and check out. The adjustability of the windscreen is motorized, and basically you press this, you just fiddle around the max. Once we've seen the windscreen, you hit it up, this button over here, and that thing goes up. Check it out. Ooh, did you see that? There. And if you want to bring it down, just press the down button. Check it out. Transformers, more than meets the eye. Da 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 da. Of course, if you really take a look at the headlight, the iconic eagle of Moto Guzzi is there. It's in all of their bikes. If you're looking at the rear view mirror, you're gonna see this, you know, oh, we got a Moto Guzzi tailing me. Belts and whistles, of course, brakes. You got cornering ABS. You got a lot of involvement from the bike to protect you from slippage. If you lose your rear wheel, that stuff, your bike's out here to protect itself. So that's gonna be cool. In terms of handling and how I'm seated on the bike, it's upright, it's comfortable, sporty, yet it looks classic. It looks like you can tour, but I can still feel how there's so much sport coming out in this bike. Brilliant. Good job, Moto Guzzi. As for the tires, they slapped some Pirellis right away, so that kind of helped our confidence in this really wet day. We've been riding through a lot of wet roads, but you know, the Pirellis delivered magnificently. It was fine. We're talking about Moto Guzzi just putting everything that they can in this bike, and it's a statement bike. What I would want to see with the V100 Mandello, and I don't know if they're gonna come up with this in the future variants, this is like the most high-tech Moto Guzzi bike ever, and I would think that they would come up with a high-tech key 2, keyless. But this is what we call in my country caprichohan, little things. It doesn't get in the way with the performance of the bike at all. I'm just saying, when you're in that level already, sure, why not? Let's do it, right?
For the overall balance, we are at over 500 pounds, and it's pretty spread out from the front to the rear. And because the suspension is that good, it's not dipping and diving much. When you're accelerating and braking hard, it's not doing this like brake, or when you're accelerating, it's doing that. It's pretty much maybe a slight or maybe slight. That's how good the suspension is. For the riding position, I am 6 feet tall. Looks wise, it might look a bit tight with how the seat is positioned with the leg peg, but I could ride this all day and just go anywhere, no problem. Also, what's cool about the bike, with the seat and the distance of my shoulder to the handlebars, I could easily adjust my position depending on my needs or the situation. For example, right, so if I'm riding like this, I can scoot my butt at the back a bit. I can scoot over like that and really turn and get into a proper position without feeling too cramped up. So there's that leeway that you have with a seat. I can also suddenly go towards the tank even more if I'm getting into a bit more rough road, and get the center of balance towards the tank even more and grip the tank with my legs. I could do that too. So I could adjust position wise. It's very, very, very easy. Front, back, front, back. I can also kind of hang a bit. I mean, I tried in Genting, but of course you were being careful not going crazy in those twisties. But yeah, we were able to do that as well. So adjustability with riding position with this bike is excellent.
People are strange when they're a stranger. Faces look ugly when they're alone. Women seem wicked when they're unwanted.
So what's the difference between the standard and the S version? So essentially it is the quick shifter, the heated grips, and the most important difference of them all, the one that really matters, it's the Olin semi-active suspension. This is something that I know you would want to have, right? It's what made me just kind of ignore the standard version. Plus you get the bragging rights. Hey, I have the S version. So like what I explained a while back, for me it's a big deal that I'm able to change the suspension settings on the fly, right? When the situation needs it for me to change, I can just do it already, you know? And for me, that just makes this bike such an all-arounder bike, you know, that kind of capability. So yeah, kind of forget about the standard. Go for the S version. Walang perfectong motor. We always say that. There is no perfect bike out there. And if there are some things that Moto Guzzi can look into to further improve this remarkable bike, one I would say would be the driveline lash. So what this means is, imagine a train, like you got a train, right? There's a bit of a lag when the front carriage accelerates and it's gonna follow and jerk, you know that feeling? And then when you hit the brakes for this one, there's gonna be that slight juk. So I feel this kind of when I'm decelerating or slowing doan. There's this little thing there that can be a bit tight. This is a first for Moto Guzzi in this level. So maybe they can look into that. It didn't really bother me as much, but it's just something I noticed. Hey, it's got that bit of a lash there. Another thing they can also look into is the quick shifter. From second to third to fourth to fifth, going up the gears, it's fine. I could just flick, blah, 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 blah. But between first and second, I felt it was a bit notchy. I find myself sometimes in neutral. And to avoid that, I'd really have to go aggressive with accelerating or decelerating really strong. But again, from 2 all the way up, fine. It's just between that 1 and 2 thing that maybe they could look into. Again, this is initial observation that I have with the bike that I was using. It could be a one-off with that particular bike. To do a true test with this, I'd have to try many bikes, but these are just some of the things that I've noticed. Now, if you ask me, it's really a minor thing considering where Moto Guzzi is at this point in their manufacturing life, right? I mean, we are at a pivot point of sorts. Like what I said, this is a new engine. First time for them to get into liquid cool. They put everything in there in terms of high-techery and safety. It's all there. It's their first generation, and I can only expect, as Moto Guzzi is Moto Guzzi, also under the Piaggio, umbrella, they can only get better. Price-wise, we are at 1.150 million pesos for the base model and 1.350 million pesos for the S model. Again, if I were you, just go for the S model and sleep well at night. Doon na kayo sa matindi. Right? Now, if we're talking about a motorcycle brand that's been around for over 100 years continuously, I mean, no breaks, no we stop for a decade or something like that. No, continuous manufacturing production. Only 3 brands can claim that, and one of them is Moto Guzzi. Here they are now, still holding the torch, high and proud. It is bright and it is still on fire. Congratulations on the V100 Mandello. Well done, Moto Guzzi. This is Zach from Makina Moto Features. Ciao.